money goes, and it's an investment into our culture.
Yes, Grenada, when you play the games of the NLA, you enable us to invest in the skills and talents of our people in the areas of sports, culture, and nation building.
Good afternoon and welcome to another MTV Community Forum. I'm your host, Byron Campbell, and of course, Chris Diali, Chris, co-host. Good evening, Chris.
Good evening, Byron. I think it's good evening. I think afternoon gone already.
Yeah.
Just say,
Okay.
I know you have a lot on your mind.
Okay, it's evening. It's evening. I take that. I take that, Chris. Thank you. It's
So
evening.
yes, good evening, listeners and viewers. It's a pleasure to be here again with Community Forum. Welcome.
Chris, I want to start with the pending decision that Grenada has relative to the request by the U.S. military to install military-grade radars at Point Saline. But in that context, I want to tell you that we now have a massive U.S. military buildup. I understand it is reported as much as 20% of U.S. military assets are now in the Caribbean, Southern Caribbean to be specific. Clearly, they are now fully prepared for an invasion, it would appear. But on the other hand, we hear there is some talk, that is, between the U.S. and Venezuela. That would be good, absolutely, because that's where we want to go. That's where we should be going, to negotiate, to find some negotiated settlement to whatever conflict there is. But the delay, Chris, of the Grenada making a decision, what do you make of it? Is August, September, October, November, I mean, like 4 months? What's going on?
Yeah, well, my point of view from that is that sometimes not all decisions are black and white. I don't think Grenada could win whether we say yay or we say nay. So sometimes no decision is a good decision. It's like abstaining from a vote in the UN. When you abstain, it creates a different thing. You didn't say yay, you didn't say nay, but people understand that the fact that you didn't say yes or no implies that you're not totally for or against.
So it's a sign of weakness, it's a sign of being indecisive.
I don't think so. Foreign issues like that, they change as the time goes, and things are very, very,
so
fluid.
You think it's okay not to take a decision?
Well, I think the Prime Minister's way he has adopted and approached this cannot be too heavily criticized.
How would this be perceived by the U.S., by the persons making the request?
As you abstain, you didn't do nothing yet. And if the U.S. do whatever they plan to do with Venezuela, then I don't think he has a reason to say yes or no.
So, because we have some good news. St. Andrew Secondary School, they are the 2025 winner of the Grand Leg debate competition. After weeks of intense competition, they won it with a final against Anglican High School in what is called a gripping finale. Congratulations are in order.
Yes, congratulations are in order. The debates are always something keenly contested. The students come well prepared. In the early days, I was part of this debate system that Grenleg developed, and I think it's something that they have continued, and kudos to them. I think it helps build character of the students, make them understand the need for research, make them understand when they're on their feet, how to respond. You learn these things, and our legal fraternity, that is what they do when they go to court.
Dwayne
so
says that it's alma mater, our technical
and that is good.
That's great, but congratulations. Yeah. Another thing happening in Grenville, let me tell you, a football technical center. This is by finance, of course, it's the GFA, Grenada Football Association, but this has been financed by FIFA. This, I understand, will be for youth development, training, regional competition. They'll have a full-size grass field and a pavilion to accommodate as much as 2,000 persons, seating capacity, plus accommodation. Great for the big parish.
Yes, and
Simoon.
Football is a very well sport that gets a lot of attention. Wagiti's competition alone is an example of that. and the kind of attendance that goes to the football game. So it's something that a lot of Grenadians enjoy. I think developing the center is going to help train the younger folk, not only in football skills, but the discipline and the understanding that things like that don't come. And when you train at a certain level to be professional, there's certain qualities that you have to develop. So I think that will help in that sense. But again, for Grenada to, in my view, to get on the map with football, we have to invest serious money in these players, young and so on, to build them, to get them to the future where we want to get them. So kudos for that.
That's great. Chris, it was announced earlier this week that the U.S. has removed the 10% the tariffs on CARICOM goods. In fact, there was a release. Dr. Patrick Antoine, of course, he's the CEO and technical director of the CARICOM private sector organization, and he was projected that CARICOM member state, for that tariff it was there, it would have cost us $653 million in export revenue. But interesting that what he's saying is that the main actors who would have pushed this, he congratulate CARICOM and key persons, but he gives credit to Trinidad Prime Minister, the Guyanese Prime Minister, President, and the Jamaica Prime Minister. Any thoughts on this?
The three big MDCs, they have the greatest to lose from the standpoint that they manufacture the most stuff that is shipped to the U.S. We are primary agriculture and fisheries, and this doesn't affect fisheries because the fisheries thing is in negotiation still. So yes, it's a good move for the Caribbean, but the MDCs, Trinidad, Guyana, and Jamaica, and Barbados to a lesser extent, are the ones that are going to benefit from that 10% removal of the tariff.
They're giving the Trinidad Prime Minister a lot of credit for that. They're saying is that her relationship with America
Trump administration.
Trump administration would have lent itself to this development.
Well, probably so, but I mean, at the end of the day, that tariff wasn't going to help the U.S. anyway, a 10% reciprocal tariff.
Chris, Maurice Bishop International Airport, big news there. What's it called, an air bridge?
The air bridges,
is now open. What does that mean for comfort, for passenger safety elements?
You know, we said on this program a few weeks ago that it was alleged that the air bridges had a lot of problems with power and all of that. It's good to see that the air bridges are now operational on the tarmac. So our jet aircraft coming from whether it's the UK and Air Canada and all of them, BA, can now pull up and be attended to by the air bridges, which means that passengers could deplane in comfort. In other words, they don't have to wait for rain if rain is falling to deplane, and deplaning in air-conditioned comfort, I understand. So that is a positive thing for us. It increases the efficiency of operations at the airport. Of course, where it would take probably an hour or more to deplane a big aircraft, it could probably happen in less time because you're just walking off and straight into the terminal building, and then you go to interact with customs and immigration. So I think it's very positive. The only concern I have is that some pundits believe that how the air bridges are organized, which is to facilitate 3 aircraft, it may not be able to facilitate the 3 aircrafts depending on how they come in and the size. So we'll wait to see.
I see that. Chris, I mean, it's a big deal coming up. We have a special guest this evening, and he is, well, you break the news to the
we have the leader of the Democratic People's Movement coming on the show tonight, but I still think...
but I just want to let the public know, but we still have... Chris, I want to talk about the traffic arrangements for the south with the water project taking place and the lane of pipes. And we heard from the project operators and the traffic department of new traffic arrangements, you know. So expect delays. This is going to run into another 3 to 4 weeks. 3 weeks is projected. But Chris, what about the timing of it though? Could we have not done it another time maybe? This is the Christmas season.
We could always argue that.
No, I'm just saying, could it have been?
Yes, it could have been, but I think with these things, the planning and the use of the money has timelines attached. So hence the project needed to start it at a certain time and to be completed by a certain percentage by a certain time. So if we could get through 98% of the project, 95, 98, we may not suffer in terms of funding being expired and removed. So it gives us that advantage to get it, and we have to make the sacrifice of the inconvenience? No. I think it started today. Today is Wednesday, and it has been a horrendous issue with traffic going into Grand Anse and even coming out. So delays, an hour, 2 hours delay. So, I think the police, in terms of the alternate routes, is okay, but I think the police need to be on the routes to coordinate the traffic flow and help with it, because you're not seeing them in person, and that I think is an issue that will help with the efficiency of the flow.
Okay, not just say this is a new regulations, but be there, manage it as it happens.
I think that is important.
Chris, there were news this week also about, it's called Project 500, that is housing at I think it's 17 being erected, I think 12 it's almost completed, of new housing. This is a positive start, I believe, because housing is a real issue here for affordable housing. Is an issue, so kudos to that, this development.
Yeah, it is. This government has been blamed for implementation of projects.
Yeah.
So if that is happening in that sense, that's a positive thing. I think they still have issues accounting for the $180 million they receive on that barrel for housing in Carriacou, Petit Martinique, and Sautez. And you can't hear a report on what has happened with the housing and what they have done with that money that came in for them to use. So it spins things, but it's positive when you could put on houses for people to use, and that is always welcomed.
And I like they look like climate smart homes also, so that's something else you wanted to mention?
Yeah, a couple of things. I wanted to extend condolences to the family of Joseph John, Engineer Joseph John, who passed last week, and he has been an icon when it comes to engineering and developing engineering over his years in the industry and in agriculture. He was an avid person in agriculture, so I think, just giving recognition and expressing condolences to his family, his children, and his wife and so on is something that we just should mention, because Joseph John is an engineer that worked in Guyana, came back and made his life in Grenada and contributed significantly to the construction of what we have now and what we know as standard practices in Grenada.
I add to this condolences to his family, certainly, and he's made a very important contribution.
Yeah, and my last point is the issue of the fisheries legislation. I heard it was passed in Parliament today. So we're hoping we could avoid the ban that was supposed to come in January 2026. According to the minister, the committee that they put in place has been working hard to get things in place, and the legislation is a major step. So the next steps, of course, is to make sure that it meets the regulations, it meets the requirements, and that that ban, parted for January, could be delayed or not implemented at all. So that's an excellent news for the fisheries industries and for fishers who are involved in the export of
So we're
fish.
seeing some action. Finally, we heard the Prime Minister announce today that Grenada will contribute $500,000 to the Jamaica Relief Fund. So that's a good thing.
Positive
I've
thing.
not heard about private sector or individual contributions were available with, but I assume that this may happen also. But that's a good development. Viewers, that's for Chit Chat. Let me again tell you that we have coming after the break, leader of the Democratic People's Movement, Honorable Peter David. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
Laboratories, providing quality care and expertise. Fit for life and allied laboratories. See our in-house doctors and our pharmacies. Get expert care and quality tests. When it comes to your health, you deserve the best. Fit for life and allied laboratories. We're taking care of Grenada.
Ladies and gentlemen, this Saturday, November 22nd, from 7 p.m. is the semi-finals of the 15th edition of the Wagiti Carib Super Knockout Football Tournament. Come witness the clash of the Titans. Game 1, Caribbean National St. John Sports versus the defending champions, Paradise FC International. And in Game 2, Hurricanes SC versus FC Camahorn. Who will make it to the grand final? All games are at the Kirani James Athletic Stadium. Then after the games, we welcome from Jamaica, Amani. Amani. And from Grenada, Dash, Khalifa, Water Daddies, Booba, and the Octane Band. Admission $50 main stand, $40 bleachers. The 15th annual Wagiti Carib Super Knockout is on. Don't miss a game.
Something is different this year about Flow Christmas promotion. Flow is doing something big and I really need to figure it out. This investigation has been going on for the last couple of weeks. I've been following her, trailing her, but I just can't seem to figure it out. I need to crack this case. I'm connecting all the dots, putting every pieces to the puzzle, but I know I'm close. Finally I catch you. Give me that.
This Christmas at Flow, get a new Samsung Galaxy for only $49 or get up to $400 in shopping vouchers when you sign up for postpaid mobile on your internet account. Win even more prizes when you spin the wheel in our stores. Remember to follow us on all social media platforms while we keep your Christmas rhythm flowing.
Welcome back, viewers. As we indicated before the break, we have with us the Honorable Peter David, who is now the political leader of the Democratic People's Movement that was launched the weekend gone. And from all indications, the launch went well in terms of how it was executed. And this evening, we're going to have a chat with him on, what the DPM represents, their objectives, the core values, and so on and so forth, so that we can get an understanding, and you, as the viewers, can understand what the DPM is about. Honorable Peter, good evening.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be back here.
Corrupted me, I'm going to say good afternoon. So
it's a pleasure to be here with you guys again.
Yeah. It's good. I saw that your launch went well in terms of its execution. But this evening I want you to answer and to ask some questions about DPM. First of all, the reason for DPM. I know you said it's a people-centric movement, and tell us a little about that thinking.
Most Grenadians know the history of how we got here. I never planned it was never in our plan at any point to form an organization like this. In fact, I was a member of the NDC in the past. We were expelled from the NDC, and I say we because it was 10 people actually that was expelled, including Stanford, Simon, and others. And I was invited to join the NNP, invited literally, begged sometimes I would say, and I joined the NNP. I stayed out of politics for 5 years, stayed out of elections in 2013 to contemplate the future after that. And then I decided, let me take the plunge to the NNP, and I went into the NNP, and I think I contributed to the development of the NNP. In fact, I won the seat twice for the NNP, and I assisted in many, many respects. Minister of Agriculture, Foreign Affairs, Minister of Labour, and I served well. I was the chair of the COVID committee for a while during COVID. I did a tremendous amount of work on that issue. And then I decided, I had the audacity to decide and to imagine that I could become the leader when the leader at the time decided he was leaving. And then all hell broke loose. And it became clear to me and clear to the world, I think, and clear to everybody who was listening that my future with the NNP was going to be shortened. It wasn't my plan at all. It was never my plan. It was my plan to stay within the NNP, have a fair election, whoever wins, wins, and continue on my political trajectory. My political trajectory did not contemplate this. But after that happened, and looking back with a group of colleagues, I have very good friends. And, I won the seat in town twice with NMP and twice with NDC. So there are people who have been very, very close with over the years. And he said, this politics is becoming too divisive. And I mean, the attacks that came at me, I weathered them. As I said to people, attacks on me, as I said to them, if attacking me brings down food prices, then continue to attack. Other than that, it's not going to have any impact on me. You want to bring down food prices, increase health care, continue to attack me if that would be the result. So attacks came and they came and they came. And then I took the decision that I was not going to stick around to be humiliated any longer. And we decided after that period, we went out into the communities, had discussions with people, and realized that there was an appetite for not a new party necessarily, but a new type of politics. Because that's what we've been saying. It's not about a new party with ambitions of individuals. It's a new style of politics. If you notice, we've been saying, that we need to tone down the rancor, tone down the tribalism, I've called it. I've been saying that for the last 20 years. And
but do you believe this is a new approach in terms of changing of the political rhetoric, in the sense that we have always been tribal, whether it's color, whether it's opposition, whether it's...
Not always, but it's been there for a while.
Right, and do you believe that the DPM will be able to hold that focus,
but
and guide it through? Because you may win or you may not win or whatever, the party may get seats or not, and it changes the complex of the politics. You've been in it long enough. You know what I'm...
Absolutely. Yeah. There's a risk. There's a risk that we get comfortable and lose sight. But, I think we have to focus on that. I believe, for me, that is not a political issue. With a political issue, we could be tactical and so on about it. To me, it's a development issue. I believe our development, all the issues we have in healthcare and housing, things that touch and concern people's lives, our ability to resolve those issues are negatively impacted by the divisive nature of our politics. I'll give you an example. NHI. The previous government did a lot. NHI was in the process. It had come nearly to the point of implementation. Then election comes, a new government comes, boom. It's put on the back burner, something else comes. Project Polaris comes as a major project. And then if you have a next election before Project Polaris is completed, which will happen, then Project Polaris will be put on the back burner. In other words, the divisive nature of our politics must be seen as a retardation, and one of the things that retard our development. So if we put it in that context, then we can find ways to ensure that the divisive nature of our politics does not continue. It started somewhere. In fact, the critical period, I think in the 80s, there was yellow and green came in with operatives coming from outside who experienced that kind of politics in Jamaica and so on, and it really exacerbated it. I think we can do it. Chris, I believe it can be done if our intellectuals envisage and come up with some ideas of how we can make it part of our constitution, part of the way we do politics.
We are surrounding yourselves, and the party is going to surround itself with individuals who have that level of maturity to keep that focus. Because we get into politics, we surround ourselves with folks, and then at the end of the day it becomes tribal. Because at the ground level, who supports one party will say, boy, we in power now, is our time. That's part of the tribalism. But do you believe you have a sufficient core of folks around you?
Well, let me put it this way. I believe such people exist. The question is getting them to participate. I think one of the biggest dangers going forward for our politics, and I told this to my good friend on Beyond the Headlines the other night, what's his name? Colin Dow. I said, Colin, your generation has abdicated its responsibility to participate in the political process. What has happened is that there are many people who have, got a good education, have capacity, but they're afraid to get into politics. Why? Politics has become, it's the chicken and the egg, because the divisive nature of the politics is now causing people to not want to participate. So yes, Chris, those people exist.
Like me.
How do, exactly? You know, I know. I was going to point to you. I was going to point to my friend in front of me to do that. You don't want to participate. Why? One
support on the other side.
Who I spoke to once said the first time he knew his mother was a prostitute is when he got into politics. He never even knew that because people just start telling him, mother is this, mother is that, you know. And that causes people to stay away. You know how many people I talk to, they say, Peter, me, in this politics thing, for when I go inside his blows, what does that do, Chris? It causes people who have the kind of views that we're speaking of, the view that we could bring the country together. They run away from it. And they decide, you know what? But I believe that's an abdication of responsibility because we must remember that we all got a good education, not because our parents could afford it, because the working people of this country contributed through taxation, etc., to developing a good education system. So we owe it, and this is my view, and I've held this view since back in the 70s. You know, we've been involved, and Brian, you know that, Chris, you know, since the 70s in trying to build a better society. I believe that if we believe that we want it to happen, we have enough talented people, enough persons who are of the view that we can that it is possible to get it done. So yes, I do believe it's possible.
Let's talk about DPM and what a recent poll done by Justin Pierre indicated that, you know, NNP could get was 742, 762, 7
2 for DPM,
2 for DPM and 6 for NDC, and your party and yourself could be a power broker in this mix, if something so was.
Remember, the poll was done when he hadn't even launched, huh? So I just asked you.
So I just saying, I just saying, but
we hadn't even launched.
There was another poll recently that was done, which gave NDC, I think, 10 seats, yourself 3, and NNP 2. So again, I mean, just saying that. The point is, you seem to be consistent around 2-3 in all the polls.
Prior to being launched?
Yes, prior to being launched. So the question is, do you see that a coalition government could emanate out of the launch of DPM and how the electorate based on the NNP base, NDC base, and so on?
Well, let me tell you, the electorate, you mentioned the electorate. The electorate, in my view, they've fed up to a large extent. Indicative of that is the amount of people who don't vote. And I suspect if we continue along the trajectory without DPM, the next election will be even higher in terms of people being, feel I can't get involved. Because what has happened is that I believe the last election was a rejection election, meaning people said, I'm voting against. They voted for something. I'm not sure if they're happy now. I believe, based on what I'm seeing, based on the polling, they're not happy with what they got. So a lot of people said, I went here, I don't like what I got. I went here, I don't like what I got. I'm just going to stay home. That group of people now can look towards DPM and say, I won't stay home anymore. There is hope. And that hope, they can follow that hope. So I believe we can do much better than that. I believe there's a large group of people who are willing to give us the opportunity to govern, because they have given opportunities to people who have disappointed them. That's the result we had in the last election. So yes, I believe it's possible that we could end up with 8 seats, but your question is, what if we end up with less than 8 and everybody ends up, you're given a scenario like everybody ends up with 5, for example. Yes, we'll have to get a coalition. And you know, it's going to be interesting how it plays out. There was a coalition in St. Vincent once where James Mitchell won. How much did he win? 1 seat, I think it was. And there was a coalition in St. Vincent. He became the prime minister. I think the issue, though, is I think it's early to make projections. But if it does come down to a coalition, I guess we have to be part of it.
Yeah, and you're willing to look at that as a formula.
Well, you will have to look at it, because nobody will form a government unless they have it. So I'll be willing to look at it. You're laughing.
In politics, or in political parties, usually persons are looking for a definition. This usually takes the form of center, right of center, left of center.
You mean the idea
where is the DPM in terms of taking the center position? People want to know politically, orientation, philosophy.
I heard a gentleman today assign center left to us, and it's a gentleman who does a podcast. We haven't sat down and say we are center left, center right. I think what happens though, quite frankly, Byron, is I don't think any party sits down and say we will be center left or we will be center right or right or left. I think you espouse your philosophy on Grenada's development because, quite frankly, I think political parties in countries like ours have to be very practical. Very, very practical. So, for example, the role of the private sector is critical in our society, very, very critical. But at the same time, the role of the state is also critical. So, for example, in healthcare, you can't privatize all of healthcare in Grenada because people won't get healthcare if you do that. So there's a role apart for the state in terms of some services, in terms of helping people get capital through GDP and all of that for there. And some people
say you're not locating the party.
I am not. No, the people will locate us when our policies are exposed. Very practical policies.
Okay. I want to go back. I want to go into some of the things you said in the opening, because I think that was a major speech certainly for the party's launching, and I think persons paid attention to this. So you argued strongly in your presentation for national unity. I think Chris touched on that, and an end to tribal politics. So I want to go there, but given the deep, I would say, historical rivalry between the NNP and NDC two-party system, both of which you were part of, what does unity will actually look like on the ground?
Well, the fact is, Baron, you talk about historical. Listen, this only started 15, 20 years ago. Grenada has a much longer history than that. And history is going back, and we will make history going forward. If we first start by saying, what we should first ask ourselves, has this divisive politics, what we call tribal politics, helped us or retarded us? I would submit and posit that it has retarded our development. And once you start there, then we start looking for solutions. For example, if you have a situation where you're a farmer and you believe your trees that have avocados are not producing sufficient avocados on this side of the land, but on that side, you move them from this side to that side. In other words, you find a solution. So what is the solution to the divisive politics? Is it the system itself? Can we tweak it? I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example. I went to one of the villages in one of the mountainous areas one night several weeks ago in one of our discussions. And the villagers, there were not much villagers there when I asked. Some had gone to an NNP meeting, some had gone to an NDC meeting. So they've gone out in their tribes, with their tribal colors. And I asked this question, is there ever a time when these people sit in this village together to talk about the development of the village together? Not as in
outside of the tribal.
Outside of the tribal. And the answer is no. So is it not possible that we can develop a mechanism where all of the communities meet as communities? Can't we do that? Is that so difficult? Is it so difficult to make a constitutional change in our country that benefits its development? The last time I'll give you an example of the difficulties. People have said that Dr. Mitchell stayed too long, he stayed too long, right? He should have gone before. But he himself presented a constitutional proposal to limit his term. And people said no. And you know why they said no? Because they were in the other tribe and they just rejected what he said because he said it. Listen, what we need to do, my brother, is find a solution. I'm tired of hearing that, yes, the problem exists, but we can't do nothing about it. This is the way we do politics. Must we be so mean to each other all the time? I mean,
does that mean taking a calm position or
it means finding a solution to a problem we have identified, which is the divisive nature of our politics.
So let's look at something that's been in the air recently, the frequent travel of the Prime Minister, which a survey recently came out indicating the volume of the amount of trips, the amount of hundreds of days spent out of the country. As a member of Parliament and as a leader of a party, would you incline to speak out against this or
I would speak out against anything that I find is wasteful to the country. That's the point I'm making. And I do it with respect. Well, the Prime Minister must travel. Yes. If his travels are if some of the travels are unnecessary, if some of the travels are not cost effective, sure I will say we shouldn't do it. But I won't be just criticizing everything the government does or everything the opposition does, because that is what we do. And I find that to be the point. I'm not saying that we cannot be critical of each other. I'm saying that the criticisms must be accompanied by some recommendations as to how we deal with the problem. So, for example, I heard you earlier talk to Chris about this issue with Venezuela and so on. It's a very practical thing. Sometimes it's easy for me to say, well, you should say no. It's easy for me to say that. But when you're governing, Byron, I've been in government for many years in both parties. It is not as easy as it seems. So yes, if I believe the Prime Minister is traveling too much, I have no difficulty criticizing it.
Okay.
And tell him I'm doing it respectfully, because that is what we need. Not because he's in another party, but because he's a Prime Minister who needs to govern.
You said something striking. I picked it up in your presentation, that the people feel left out of their own country. In concrete terms, who is being left out? Youth, farmers, workers. What do you mean
in
by
decision making?
Decision making. Elaborate that for us.
Because you sit in Parliament, in cabinet. I see it all the time. You sit in cabinet, you make decisions. And if you notice also in the same speech, we say we should have mechanisms in the constituencies where the constituency members are able to participate in decisions that touch and concern them, but not only in making the decisions, but in implementing those decisions. Because you know what? As politicians, we believe we know everything. We believe we know what's good and what's bad for the people, without even speaking to the people, because there are no mechanisms. Why can't we have community centers in all the major spots in constituencies where they can gather together? They never gather together to talk about the constituency. We go to Parliament and we talk on their behalf as if we are them, and they are no way participant. And then we go to have a meeting, but this tribe is meeting this week and the next tribe is meeting next week. But there is never a place where the people meet, Baron. You see, democracy means the people. You know what we say? We say we want a society, the strength of a society is not in the power of a few, but the participation of all.
So you've launched. What's the next phase now? Where do you go from here?
But
How do you, with this,
what
go
I
ahead,
ask
Chris.
Peter is, the parties started town hall meetings.
The parties?
NDC had some town hall meetings where they invited communities to come out and say everybody could come to this meeting. Something similar to the philosophy you're expounding. But what you found, what the reports coming back is that the only people who turned up was NDC people. And if NNP people or whoever was to turn up and ask difficult questions, you get shut down. And that's by the people themselves. So then it became a situation where nobody who not part of the ruling government will come to any of these town hall meetings.
So then what are we to do, Chris? As the persons who are tasked with solving a problem, what do we do? What do? We need to ensure, first of all, we educate our people about the failings of that. But more importantly, we show them a better example. When we go to Parliament, when we have discussions, we invite those kinds of the kind of participation I'm talking about. In other words, people are following their leaders because they believe that is the way to get to where they want to go. Because the leaders say, cuss Peter. You know, it have people who just, you see them on Facebook, just cussing Peter. They didn't know why they're cussing Peter. You know why Peter bad. You know what was amazing, Byron? I left NDC where LP was cussing me. I went into LP and they loved me. Loved me until the point where the leader says, stop loving him now. Start hating him now. It's amazing. In other words, Chris, it's like a Pavlovian response. We just cultured to
what
do
a bit of contradiction.
Well,
what a bit of contradiction here, because you spoke about generational shift, but you also emphasize your own experience. So the question is, how does DPM balance generational renewal with experienced leadership, especially at this stage of your political career?
Meaning?
Well, meaning because I'm making a point that the generational shift, you're saying that there's need for more young people to come in.
Absolutely.
So, but at the same time,
it doesn't mean removing all the talented people. I mean, the fact that Chris doing 59 in seasons don't mean we move him. He wanted to
he's 55.
55. The point I'm making
elaborate on that point.
Listen, the age issue. It came up the other night in the discussion. You know, the bigger issue is that people just get tired of you over time. It's not an age issue. Who's the most popular politician in America with the young people? Bernie Sanders.
Yes.
And he's the oldest of them. Why? Because his ideas are still relevant and youthful. The point I'm making is this, that we want next gen persons to be part of it. But it doesn't mean removing everybody like you who've had experience. In fact, I think that is one of the problems we have, that a lot of the experienced people get pushed out.
So is your role to lead, to guide, or transition power to the younger generation?
All three.
All three. Okay.
Different percentages.
I want to go to the diaspora, because the diaspora is there. It was well represented at your launching of the party. We recognize the diaspora for its relationship. I mean, it's our people. It contributes, but it's more than that, as you said.
Absolutely.
But where do you see it going? How do you integrate it in a social way, in a political way, more?
I have made proposals on the diaspora. In fact,
Yeah.
I was the first diaspora minister of diaspora affairs, because I lived in London 5 years, I lived in Canada, I lived in for years, 5 years, 6 years, I lived in the US for over 10 years. And I came to know that the further away Grenadians go from Grenada, is the more patriotic they become. And it's not patriotism that only leads to sending barrels, because sometimes that's how we treat the diaspora. It's a patriotism that could lead to a lot more, by way of, some people had proposals for a diaspora bond, some people had, we can, you have medicine now where Grenadian doctors, I mean, I know Dr. Roland Pulsen, for example, Tyke, living in New York, he's done a tremendous amount of work with Grenadians while he's in New York. I mean, he's a phenomenal person, Roland Pulsen, and he is as patriotic as you come, and he does it while in New York. I believe, first of all, that we need to find more ways to get them more involved in the development process. Not just calling them when Hurricane Ivan pass or this hurricane pass, and when somebody, the political parties want some campaign paraphernalia, or we need some Christmas toys. Involve them in development. I've even gone as far as to say that I believe we should appoint a senator for diaspora affairs. No, I know some persons on diaspora want us to go further and do voting and all that. I think that's going to be difficult, given the fact that we have more people in the diaspora than we have locally. But certainly, a Senate position, however we configure it, you see, Byron, we have to dream it and then figure out a way to get it implemented. So first, we start with that dream. And then we have a discussion on the dream, and then we move forward on it if we come to agreement. I believe the diaspora. And we came, and again, this shows the tribal nature of things. We had a diaspora conference in Grenada back when I was in NDC, in the first time I was in NDC. We developed proposals. Then after we weren't there anymore, it went dead. And then I came back in this last government, and we had an agreement with the IMO, one of the UN agencies. Got a whole proposal going again, did some more documents. Now it's sitting there. There is no continuity in these things. Why? Because of the nature of the change, nature of the
here comes the question about the leadership aspect. Because we did a 2035 plan, a 2030 plan, that we involve...
2035, I think it was.
We involve everybody. Everybody seemed to be on board with this plan, whether it's education, health, and so
everybody on. Meaning who?
Well, opposition, the ruling party at the time,
or the leaders
NGOs,
of everybody, you think?
Private sector, and so on, was part of this...
The leaders of these groups.
Yeah. And came together and they went out in the community and discussed the plans and what is put there and so on. So there was general acceptance. But my question is on the leadership issue, because part of the tribalism issue is our leaders and how they purport themselves. So that the town hall meeting, if the leader doesn't come and say, we're doing a town hall, not an NDC town hall meeting, we're doing a town hall meeting. We don't need you to come here in your yellow jersey. We don't need you to come in green. Just come. And let us discuss the issues. Yes, it's planned by the ruling party because we want to hear the challenges and so on. So do we change the complex? Is it this the kind of leadership you want to see emanate?
I think yes, absolutely. I think we first have to start with a recognition of the problem. You speak about the 2030 plan. I was integral in getting that going. When we came into government, I talked to Dr. Mitchell and we got that going. But my view of it is that it should be rooted in the people. Meaning, not just the leaders, because what has happened is that it's developed, lovely document, very good document, but sitting on a shelf somewhere. And you're the first, today I had an interview and I said, I've been speaking for the last several months and nobody's ever asked me about a 2035 plan because it seems it doesn't exist, but of course you know about it. And what has happened is that 2035 plan is just a document that has not been rooted in, if it were, here's what would happen.
And you know,
This government would be losing it just as the old government.
Our budgets are supposed to reflect the
and
action
align
points
to
in
that.
every, yes,
Absolutely.
Yes. And you're not
we're supposed to be
seeing that.
speaking about it.
Yes.
When we go to the communities, we're supposed to be saying we achieved these objectives. But you know what? Yes. Again, it was a document prepared in a way that reflected what the leaders felt. But it never became, the way countries like Singapore,
Yeah.
I mean, the way Lee Kuan Yew
Taiwan.
or Taiwan or China,
Yeah.
the way their plans, their 5-year plans, and they follow it, and they have reports on it, and the people know about their plans. We don't do that. I'm saying, Chris, we have to do business differently, and that is the problem. We have to do things different, but you know what? What we hear all the time, this is how we do it. I try to convince many people about this. Unless we change course, we're going to be singing the same song.
So that's where I want to go, because you're saying that the DPM is not just a party, it's a movement of national
Trying to create
renewal.
a new, and
so the
trying to
question
create a
is,
new politics.
movements usually arise out of some, let's say, profound crisis. Right? What crisis do we have today?
We have
is that that you believe is the catalyst for this movement?
Have you looked at our development patterns? I mean, cost of living is kicking up, healthcare is still a problem. Young people are not being trained. The business community want these kinds of people to work for them, and we're training those kinds of people. You don't call that a crisis? I call what we're in a crisis. I mean, it seems it appears it's normal, but you go to the homes, you meet people and talk to them about their kids. I see these problems every day in our courts. Let's talk about the alienation of our kids. Let us talk about the fact that their mental health issues abound these days. Let's talk about the fact that people can't go to the supermarket and you have to resort to all kinds of methods to survive. It means our society will slowly decline. And you know what? We will wake up one day and wonder if that's the Grenada that you grew up in.
So if the crisis is so serious, why are more senior figures, national figures, not joining the movement publicly? What explained this hesitation so far? Or you believe it's a fear?
Fear. I mean, Byron, I speak to people every day quietly. I have colleagues every day who want to get involved. I have colleagues who would love to come and say, listen, I agree with the message. They will tell me quietly, but they dare not do it because there will be consequences. And sometimes there may not be consequences, but there's a fear that there will be consequences.
So you touched on it because you talk about growing inequality and social frustration.
Absolutely.
Based on your experience, though, what do you see as the underlying cause? Economic structure, political choices, global shocks? I mean, what's creating this?
There's
and what's going to be a policy intervention to
there are a number of policy interventions, but I don't have all the answers to all the questions. I don't have all the answers to all our problems that we have. Yeah. But I do know we have it, Byron. We have the answers to the questions. I mean, we have the good brains in this room tonight. I'm sure if we sit here through the evening, we'll come up with some good prescriptions. And that is what I'm getting at. We can sit here and talk. I can offer endless amount of solutions. But unless the structure is not there to receive it. So, for example, we spoke about generational wealth and getting some kids, young people, 35 years old, up to 35, give them, I think, $35,000 is the proposal we're making, and a family of two, $50,000 to get them to start with a house, because housing is a major problem.
Yeah.
And so there are all kinds of prescriptions we will come up with. We have a policy committee that is meeting. We hope to submit it to some good brains to look at it. But we need to get our people on board with these issues. And, you know, we will come with proposals.
Peter, you know,
but
a lot of the party at DPM songs as what we in the old knew as local government. It's a hybrid form of local government.
Yeah. Why was local government gotten rid of? Remind me.
Yeah, cost was a major concern at the time.
Cost and
I don't know.
Politicians at the center believing they are
Right.
threatened by these young politicians in villages who feel they know more than the center. In other words, democracy was the threat.
Yeah. So it's
Us
a
politicians,
hybrid
yeah,
form
yeah.
of local government that we're looking to introduce through your party.
Well, that is the conclusion you're coming to here in the problem. Huh?
Yes,
Isn't it?
yes, yes.
In
And
other
here
words,
is
we
a
get in
possible way
there.
to solve it.
So we get in there.
Through people.
So we
And
get in there.
nothing wrong with that.
And
So
that is what we need.
from that point of view, what is your party's projection for the amount of constituencies you plan to, if the election was called in 2026 or
How many are we going to
2027?
run in? 15.
15.
We put on 15
Putting up
candidates.
15 candidates. Okay, so you're contesting full.
Well, yes, because we believe that all constituencies, even if they don't vote for us, they need to hear the message.
Right.
Part of our campaign is not necessarily to win all the seats, but it's for the message to go out there. Because you see what will happen if our message starts resonating, the other parties will pick it up. And we're fine with that. I'm not believing that we have this message and nobody else should have it. If every party could start preaching tomorrow that we need unity and we need to de-escalate the tribal war, I will be the happiest man in the world. Why? Because the objective is to solve the developmental issues that we have, to bring down cost of living, to provide health care, to provide proper education for the kids. Those are the issues. My enemy is not the NDC or the NMP. Our enemy is not the other parties. Our enemy is poverty, unemployment, lack of housing. Those are the things that concern people. But, you know, we have working people fighting each other, believing, you know, you see that household, there's an NMP house, you know. What the hell does that mean? What's that NMP
You
house?
know,
That's a house of working people too.
I like the angle you're taking because, you know, this government came in on a transformative agenda. And we said, some of us who were looking at it, that transformation could only happen up here first before it could physically occur in different processes or systems that we have. And I hear you about the education and educating. So this is about also transforming what we know and making it a difference and to change what we know.
I said to somebody today, tribalism started somewhere and it could end somewhere. But it will only end if we will it to end and come up with prescriptions for ending it. But if we accept it as natural, which we seem to be doing, not we here, but society seems to be accepting it as a natural state of affairs. One person told me that once. If we accept that, then we'll do nothing about it, but you're absolutely correct. We need to
Well, one of the things you, as a policy, because I heard you that it's a young organization, but one policy you announced, and you were very specific about it, having to do with housing. You mentioned that any young persons, the young persons wanting to build a house will get a start of a grant of $30,000 to $35,000 thereabout. Why this number, and why you singled housing singularly? Because no other policy.
It's not restricted to that, but it's one of the proposals.
Yeah, one of the proposals you came with. So why you prioritize this?
Because housing is critical, and housing is a way generational wealth passes down from one group to another.
Okay.
And you have a house, then you know the amount of people who use their house to get a mortgage, a second mortgage, to send their kids to school, to university. You know many people can't get a mortgage or a loan for student loans. If you have a house, that works.
Ghanaian's housing scheme is a classic example.
Huh?
Ghanaian's housing scheme.
Yeah.
Started as a little
You remember that?
poor,
You remember
and
that?
now we see
Now you see
huge.
these castles down there.
So
And
somebody
it's
showed me some
generational
data.
wealth.
Generational
Somebody
wealth.
showed me some data. They said for the first time in the history of Grenada, you have more adults, children living with parents, unable to afford their own house.
Absolutely.
Now. So this is something.
Two problems: land and capital.
So you've prioritized this.
Yes.
But one of
because-
the things you said too, and again, I'm going back because that's your inaugural speech, because this is your line, the party, lifting out. You said the movement is about lifting up every Grenadian. What does this mean for vulnerable groups like single mothers, rural households, the disabled, low-income workers, young school leavers? What does it mean for them? What are you going to do for these people?
Well,
what do you mean exactly?
they're going to be impacted. Education, for example, we need to change the way we do education. We need to, if you notice, there you made it in speech too. We plan to do an audit of all of the working people we have, what kinds of ambitions they have, what kinds of talents they have, and find ways to train them in that, but also to work with the business community to determine what are the talents we need. You know, when China was about to go on its in several years ago, crime with Deng and other leaders, they decided they needed engineers. So they sent a whole ton of engineers to Cuba at particular universities to train. We need to decide, and the same 2035 plan, it needs to determine what talent we need, what skills do we need, and those people you're referring to.
So when we look at these groups, so which of these groups you believe has been most failed by past governments, and of course including the ones you've served in, which are these groups? Because we know that single mothers, for example, make up almost, I think it's 48% of all households.
Yeah,
you know,
they're
single
struggling,
mothers.
and they're struggling.
So which of these groups you believe have been most failed by past
Well, I don't know. I'll have to look at data and I'll have to speak to the experts on who've done the data collecting and so on, but certainly single mothers. I mean, because I meet up with them all the time, with the kids in the court, with the kids in the communities, and they are in a difficult position, particularly with some of the fathers being absent, or some of the fathers are really unable to contribute the way they're supposed to contribute. That is an issue we have to address, and that is an issue that is causing much problems in the community.
Yeah, and the resocialization
Chris,
of
we
our
take
community.
we have to take a short break and we'll come back with you. Viewers, stay with us. We'll come back with Honorable Peter David. See you in a moment.
Fit for Life and Allied Laboratories, providing quality care and expertise. Fit for Life and Allied Laboratories, see our in-house doctors and our pharmacies. Get expert care and quality tests. When it comes to your health, you deserve the best. Fit for Life and Allied Laboratories, we're taking care of Grenada.
Songs of Hope and Glory, a diocesan choir festival. Join us as we celebrate this Jubilee year with beautiful songs and uplifting performances on November 30th, 4 p.m. at the Grenada Trade Center. Tickets cost adults $20, children $10. Tickets are available at your local churches and on gotofect.com. Let's come together to celebrate with our choirs and rejoice in the spirit of hope and glory. November 30th, 4 p.m. at the Grenada Trade Center. See you there.
For 35 years, one name has stood with us. Through the storms and sunshine, we've been by your side. Whether you're on the road, at sea, on site, or at home, with Grenadian General Insurance, confidence comes standard. It's never been a better time to renew and update for added benefits. Join us in celebrating 35 years of safeguarding what matters most. Grenadian General Insurance, 35 years strong. Visit Grenadian General Insurance on Scott Street, St. George's. Call us at 440-2434 or visit grenadiangeneral.gd to get the coverage you need.
Welcome back again, viewers. We're here with the Honorable Peter David talking about DPM. And when we went, I was going to ask a question, Honorable Peter David, about the education aspect of your party and the interests there, and the changing of minds, the changing or the transformation, using that word. And you know, in the break we were talking about AI and its influence on society going forward, and the generations, what is going to happen to our young people and where it's going. China is now having their kindergarten children understand what is AI and the future and where it's going to put the society 10, 15, 20 years from now. Ghana just announced that they're doing a big data center to facilitate AI movement, and they will facilitate what happens in the CARICOM. What is DPM's, you know, I don't want detail, but what is DPM's thinking about how education can impact our generation now and those to come?
Absolutely.
And change it.
And that, you know, we have relations with all these countries. We refer to China and all these, you know, in Ghana you refer to. And we can seek assistance in getting that done, training for our people in these countries on those issues, AI, etc. Of course, that is the way the world is going. Even if we train too many of them and they have to leave, they deal with remittances, but we have to train our people in the areas that we believe will assist in our development. AI is the future.
Yeah.
Absolutely the future. I mean,
AI not replaces job, but makes it more efficient.
Absolutely. And people who are displaced in one area will find work in another area when you develop the capacity in the other area. So absolutely. But I think, and we talk about the diaspora, there are Grenadians throughout the world who are involved in these things. It is just that we do not create an environment where it is being implemented. So, but you know, Chris, what I want most of all is a discussion like this in a room where we're discussing the development of the country. And I think not necessarily with yourselves alone, but certainly with people in Grenada, despite their colors. And I want to go back to that. That these
elaborate on this a bit, you know, without the color.
These discussions, I'm sure that we can get Grenadians from all political parties to engage in a discussion about this, about what the focus of our education system should be. But instead, we have the politicians keeping people away from each other. So the leading politicians, as you said, there's a 2035 plan. We know what the 2035 plan envisages in terms of where development must be. I hear there's some Vision 75.
Vision 75 announced by the Prime Minister.
Announced by the Prime Minister. These things are supposed to be our path to that development objective. We need to see
without the tribalism.
Without the tribalism. But it will be achieved without the tribalism. It cannot be achieved with.
But let's stay on the tribal politics, because you say you in your speech you're arguing strongly for national unity and intertribal politics. But the fact that you have formed a separate political party besides the other two, you're going to be different, because I'm one of the persons, for example, that I'm giving an example here. What I think is 23% of the population that don't vote. You know, we don't believe in the system as it is. We're looking for alternative. So am I now being directed to a third party?
Well,
isn't that it? I mean, you're not saying come together.
We can't change.
Yeah.
The system from outside. We've acknowledged that. We've had this discussion.
Okay.
I can't stay on the outside and march from one end of Lagoon Road to the other end of Lagoon Road with a placard saying change the system.
Yeah.
You change the system, only way to do it is working from within.
Yeah.
If we work from within and make some structural changes, Chris came up with the idea a minute ago about local government. We talked about local government. Maybe we need to relook that. It was called local government, maybe it be called something else, but certainly what it does, it gives power to the people in the constituencies to affect their lives. So when you're budgeting, you say, listen, this area will get X amount of money to do X amount of projects, and they're involved. So, yes, we are forming what is called a party. We call it a movement. But we hope to change the entire way politics is done.
So I'm one of those persons looking on a television right now. Give me one good reason why I should join the Democratic People's Movement.
Because you want to change the way politics is done. You believe that all of this back and forth, LMP fighting, NDC fighting, whoever over the years, GMP, GUN, you believe that that is not working. You believe that a healthcare system is as bad as it was, a previous government, this government going forward, that cost of living is high, you believe that the agricultural sector is not being serviced the way it should be serviced, and you believe that a part of the problem is the fact that politicians are more focused on fighting each other than fighting poverty, than fighting lack of education. And you want to come into an organization that is focused on that, but not only focused on doing that, but focused on bringing everybody together in whatever ways we can. I am not telling you that we're building heaven on earth, that everybody will sing Kumbaya and come and start dancing with each other. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be tedious. We have to be patient. But I am saying, I start from the premise that what we have is not working. And we have to come with something new. I don't have all the answers. You don't have all the answers. But together, we'll find some answers. And we've sat here tonight, and some ideas are already flowing. What we want, though, Byron, mostly, is to sit together as a nation and sort out the problems that we have and have some recommendations, which may include some structural changes. So, for example, I'll give you an example, California. You know, we vote, I said to people all the time, we vote politicians into power. You hear what I say? Into power. And we give them the power.
Into power, yeah.
And then we sit and wait for 5 years and hope that they deliver. You know, in California, there's a provision in the law which says halfway in your term, if you don't, they tried this on Gavin Newsom the other day, if you don't deliver, we can recall you.
Recall you.
So the politician has an incentive now to make sure that they go back into the constituencies and get the mandate every time in everything they do. I don't know if, I'm not saying we should do that. I'm simply saying that we need some kind of mechanisms to make sure that the people are properly served. I think the people are used for politicians to get into office, and then they become irrelevant for 5 years, and then we go run around after every 5 years, we do what we do, get back in the election, and then the people start fretting again. I believe that we need to find a way to bring the people together. As I say, I'm not saying, not a pie in the sky thing, realistic objectives. But unless we're together and focused, I don't think we're changing anything. I don't think much has changed since independence, actually. The same things we were struggling for in the 1970s.
Chris, you have the final
Still
question.
struggling for
Yeah, I don't have a question. I have a comment about, you know, your party in its launch now is going to be serving a generation that is very impatient, our young people. And we have to find a way to curb that impatience and to make it productive in the sense that we get the changes. So I applaud DPM for considering a transformative, and I'm using transformative purposely, a transformative change in how we do our political management in our country. And I think that is something that must be applauded. But Honorable Peter David, I want to wish you the best. I think it's going to be a tall hill to climb. As you say, it's going to require patience, it's going to be tedious. But if you can muscle a lot of us to come around a table and talk openly and freely, whether you're in blue, yellow, green, or whatever color, I think it's something that we should welcome.
Thank you.
Your final comments.
Well, no, I want to take about what Chris said there. I think we must recognize the problems and we must dream of solutions, and I think we must work on those dreams. I mean, my father, as a young man, he was poor. He dreamed of sending all his children to university, so he worked hell hard. He worked, and he didn't get to university. My mother, I became a lawyer because my mother wanted to be a lawyer, but she couldn't afford to be a lawyer, so she literally forced me to become a lawyer. The point I'm making is they dreamed of that, and they worked on the dream, and their dream was fulfilled. Now there are people who may say, "You crazy, how you get all your children to go to university?" My father worked hard, and you guys know, no chance. So
Empire Cinema.
Empire Cinema, all
and
that. So what I'm saying is that I think we as a people should recognize the problems we have, dream of a society we want to build, and get about building it, and forget the enemies that they're creating for you. Your enemy is underdevelopment. Your enemy is high cost of living. Your enemy is lack of health care. Those are your enemies, not your neighbor who is wearing a color that is not yours. That is not your enemy. Those are your compatriots. Those are your colleagues. Those are your fellow travelers who have the same problems that you have. Their kids need to go to school and they need to buy.
We need a paradigm shift in this issue.
Absolutely.
Comrade, thanks for coming. It's a pleasure having you. I want to wish you well.
I enjoyed it.
You hear that word, comrade? Peter, it's a pleasure all
The
the time.
pleasure was mine. I really enjoyed it. Absolutely, honestly.
Viewers, that's all the time we have. We will see you next week. Let me thank our technical staff. We'll see you next week, same time. Bye-bye.